Santa. Christmas is coming, yeah. Better be nice if you want your present. Tell all your brothers, sisters, mama and papa too. Christmas is coming, yeah. Staying up late looking out the window, yeah. Christmas is coming, yeah. Spotting some sleigh rides and some jingle bells. Tell all your brothers, sisters, mama and papa too. Christmas is coming, yeah. Roasting some chestnuts on the fire, yeah. Christmas is coming, yeah. Celebration and surprises. Tell all your brothers, sisters, mama and papa too. Ooh, yeah. Tell all your brothers, sisters, and mama and papa too. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hello. Welcome, guys. It is live at 5. This week, it's myself only. Josh is driving up north. He's on the road, stuck in traffic, all that good stuff. He was going to try to log in. Didn't happen, so you just have me this evening. I appreciate you guys stopping by. If you're new to the show, thanks for stopping by. We answer your real estate and mortgage questions here live on the show. If you're a regular viewer, a normal viewer, as I say, I appreciate you being here and all the support. For those of you guys who have supported me all year, thank you. Thank you. It is a blessing. I'm very appreciative. I'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. So what's happening in the housing market, right? So I don't know how long today's show is going to go. It depends on how many questions you guys have, how many people log in. We can talk about anything. Doesn't matter. We could talk about the market. We can talk about anything you want. But we are going to talk about the housing market to start it off, just to give you guys a little rundown. Rates over the past week, normally this is something Josh would talk about, haven't really moved too much. We've seen some fluctuations, an eighth quarter here and there, but for the most part, rates have pretty much remained the same. The Delta variant, as you guys know, is mainstream news at the moment. And so we'll see how that impacts things over the next couple of weeks. If you watch the news, which I don't, but reading the headlines, it seems that the cases are going up. And if they continue to rise, that could actually play into some of the adjustments with regards to the long-term direction of interest rates and all that good stuff. But if you guys follow me for any period of time, I normally just kind of update you here on the housing market locally, what's happening with supply, just to kind of keep you guys in the loop. I'm in Southern California. Inventory in Orange County continues to go down. As of coming on the show, we're at 1,113 properties. So at the height of this year, the most amount of properties we saw on the market at any period of time was about 2,600. It is normal for inventory to continue to go down during this time of year, and we're seeing exactly that. That along with just a scarcity of inventory in itself. So 3.3 million people, we have 1,000 homes on the market, 1,100 homes. That's single families, townhomes, condos. Here in Huntington Beach, I think we were at 88 or 83, one of the two. Either way, substantially lower than we have been. At the height, we were about 160, 170 homes on the market. So we're back to where we were in the lows of spring. And I expect as we move, next week, we still have about a week and a half left of the year. Inventory is going to continue to deplete, right? It's not normal for people to want to put their homes on the market this time of year. As a real estate agent, if you wanted to list your house this week, I would probably just tell you to hold off. Just because people are in a different mindset for the most part. Even if you're a home buyer during this time of year, you're sidetracked with kids, you're sidetracked with getting presents, maybe finalizing the end of year for work. You're just not really in the mindset for buying homes. And so it's going to slow down, and that is going to be completely normal. So with that said, we did get existing home sales report, a couple of changes in that I think are important to point out. One is that first-time home buyers, right? So existing home sales went up, which we kind of expected to some extent. So they rose by 1.9%. The new median home sales, the new price rose 13.9% year over year. So now we're sitting at a median home price of $353,900 across the U.S. But inventory continued to deplete, 2.1 months across the board. But what I find interesting here is that first-time home buyers were responsible for 26% of the sales in November. That's down from 29% in October and 32% in November of last year. Why do I think that's interesting? It's because home prices are continuing to rise. The people that are getting the most affected are typically the first-time home buyers. And I'm stereotyping, I'm summarizing a little bit here because they're generally in the lower price points for the most part. Not always, but generally they're in. If you're a first-time home buyer, you're coming in usually entry-level type pricing across the board. And so as prices have risen, a lot of people are getting priced out. And I think it's affecting first-time home buyers probably more than it is anyone else. But some other things to note: cash sales accounted for 24% in November versus 20% in last November. So up a little bit from last November. It was essentially equal to October. So it didn't move from October to November, still 24% of the sales. And then let's see, distress sales still representing less than 1% of homes on the market. And that's, because people have equity in their property for the most part. And there's been moratoriums and all that good stuff. So any real foreclosures are probably still working their ways through the court system for the most part. And then lastly, what was the other one that I was going to point out? Investors, second home buyers, 15% of homes in November. That's down from 17% in October. So investors, a little bit less. Now, it could be the time of the year. It could be a lack of available property to choose from, a lack of opportunities out there. That's what's hard to say. So, but if you're just joining us now, if you have questions, put them in the comments. We'll do our best to get to them, or I'll do my best to get to them. Normally, I have a sidekick here. He's again on the road. At some point, he might log in, but we'll see what happens. So, Jennifer is in the chat. She's moderating from her car. Jennifer, you probably don't need to do that tonight. People aren't going to stick around for me, the one-man show tonight, but I appreciate you being here. If you get kicked out, it's Jennifer's fault, as I always say. Jimmy says, with 3 expected rate hikes next year, where will mortgage rates be and how much will this affect valuations of homes? So typically this is a question that we would throw to Josh, our resident mortgage expert. But, Josh mentioned last week, he doesn't really expect rates to rise that much. Now, Lawrence Yoon, chief economist for the Association of Realtors, is predicting 3.7% by the end of 2022. I think Fannie Mae's prediction is somewhere in that ballpark as well. A lot of the major, networks, affiliations that are affiliated to real estate are predicting somewhere in the higher 3%, mid to high 3% range. it's the Fed is doing what they should be doing at this time. Unfortunately, they waited too long to start, tapering, their purchase of mortgage-backed securities and bonds. Based on the way they've said they're going to do it now, it should end in March. And they've basically come out and said that they're not going to raise rates, the Fed funds rate, any short-term interest rates until they completely stop the tapering. So which means probably early April, best case. A lot of the experts out there are predicting probably midsummer for any potential rate hikes. But if they do, Josh thinks that a lot of it has to do with the Fed getting ahead of themselves a little bit and having some ammo in case we do go into a recession, in case something more does happen. They actually have the ability to do something to help, because presently there's not a lot they can do. Now, they could obviously go back and start buying mortgage bonds and mortgage-backed securities and all that stuff. But the fact is, they had to stop the tapering and raise interest rates so that they give themselves some ammo in the future in order to do what they need to do if something does arise, if the economy does go into a recession, something changes. Now, and with that said, inflation being where it is, there are some predictions that, within a couple of years, we're probably going to have some sort of recession. And so they're doing what they need to do. But at the end of the day, I don't think the rate hikes are really going to change interest rates for the most part. I think you could see interest rates again somewhere in the mid threes by the end of next year, maybe even at 3.7%. I don't know how much that actually changes the dynamic of the housing market. We saw interest rates rise earlier this year to somewhere in the mid 3% range for a period of time. The market continued to do what it had been doing. I think part of the slowdown in the market at the moment is just a lack of inventory. Now, you're clearly going to have buyers out there that can't qualify if rates go up higher, right? 0.5% in rates going up is going to limit how much someone can purchase. And those that are at the end of their qualifying ratios are going to be the most affected. And so those people will, have the hardest time. And I personally think that's going to be in the lower price points for the most part. I feel like those people are typically the ones stretching it the most in order to get into a home. A lot of the second home buyers, the move up buyers, are taking equity from an existing sale and purchasing something else. So they're not generally as tight on their ratios as somebody coming in, purchasing a home, first time, lower down payment, trying to maximize their qualifications. And then you can see the luxury end of the market has gone up like 30% this year. So the luxury buyers clearly aren't going to be affected. So I think, the markets that focus on the lower price points, a lot of first-time home buyers, those are the markets I think that would be affected more so than anything else. I think a market like Southern California, where I am, is less likely to be affected with a rise in rates. Now, it will affect some buyers, but it's not going to change, in my opinion, the dynamic of the market, unless, again, that rise in rates slows demand enough where you start to build supply. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, what the easy answer to your question is, until supply rises, you don't see a change in the housing market. I don't care what rates do, right? If rates go up and buyer demand continues to stay there and supply doesn't build, then that's not going to have an impact. But if it does slow demand enough where inventory starts to build, earlier in the show, I mentioned nationwide, we're about 2.1 months of supply of homes at the moment. So 2.1 month supply of homes, in order to get to somewhat of a balanced market, you need that to double, and then not double again, but about half of that again. In order to get somewhere of a balance. And we're a long ways from that. But I do think in the spring, you're going to see more homes come on the market, which is going to give buyers more of an opportunity. I don't think you're going to see a real rise in rates until probably after the first quarter, if at all, just because I don't think a lot's going to change until the tapering ends. And then we see what happens with the Fed funds rate. So that's my thoughts on it. If Josh logs in, we can ask him the same question and get him to go over it. So. Let's see. Arlo says, thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here, Arlo. So Arlo says, just got my real estate license in California, just sold my first house. Any advice? No, my only advice would be take care of those clients. Continue to follow up, continue to touch base with those clients. Ask those clients if they know anyone that essentially wants a real estate agent that provides the level of service that you did. Hopefully you went far above and beyond what they expected. They had a great experience. They want to refer you, because that's essentially how you build a good business, right? Go with the people that know, like you, and trust you. Try to build rapport, relationships, and build your business off that. As a real estate agent, what I would tell you: don't buy leads. Don't get caught up in the lead cycle. Try to further your relationships. The business will go a lot further. Just my 2 cents on that. Joe is asking me to look at Fresno County stats. I don't really have much on Fresno County at the moment. I only have what shows up in the reports online with regards to, from National Association of Realtors, and the latest data is not out yet on that. So maybe next week we'll have it and we'll be able to touch on Fresno County a little bit. But even then, I'm not your best resource, right? Southern California, Orange County, maybe LA, San Diego County, I can comment a little bit more, but anything other than that, I'm not probably the best fit for you. But if you need somebody up there, reach out and I can definitely put you in touch with somebody that can help you. So conservative principles, there's a very good chance the Fed has misread this and will not raise 3 times. Yeah. I mean, again, I think they're more likely to do it just now because they're behind the 8 ball, so to speak. Inflation, they stopped using the word transitory. Inflation clearly is a little bit more, worrisome in their eyes than they thought a couple of months back. And while I do believe it's likely to work itself out for the most part, there are some things that are, as Josh would say, are sticky to the upside, things that aren't going to adjust down, if you will, even when inflation calms down a little bit. But I think, again, the Fed has to give themselves some ammunition in the case that something more does happen to the market and they have, the ability to actually help. Because if they don't, they're really putting themselves in a bad position. So hard to say what happens, but at presently, I would just, again, expect 2 to 3 time raise. But does that mean a quarter each time? Does it mean they're going to come off the bat and do a 0.5%? If they raised it 3 times, that puts, the Fed funds rate at what, between 0.75 and 1, still relatively low overall. But it's hard to say what that actually does and how the impacts, will affect the housing market. But again, I don't think anything changes until supply and demand changes. Call me crazy, but we've been talking about this since the pandemic started, right? I mean, that's really, for those of you who started following me recently or just found me, prior to the pandemic, I would do videos here and there, right? Primarily just talking. I would do maybe a once a month update on the market locally here for Southern California. And then I would kind of talk about some of the evergreen stuff with regards to real estate, common questions that I got from clients, just to give, a brief explanation to help people understand, some of the basics, if you will, like what is a 1031 tax exchange? How do capital gains work on selling property? What's it like to buy and sell a property at the same time? That sort of thing. Because I figured if one person had that question, a lot of people had it. But then when the pandemic started, clearly there was a lot of misinformation out there. And so, wanted to put information that I thought was useful and continued to do a lot of market updates. So I've been talking about the market since the beginning of this thing. And not to say that, we were right or that we've nailed this thing, because clearly there were a lot of things that weren't 100% accurate, but we've talked about what's driving the market and what continues to drive the market. And for the time being, that's not going to change, right? I mean, the working from home aspect that everybody thought was going to go back to normal clearly has not. You've got these new variants coming into play that's making people, their home is their castle, so to speak. And so people, that's where they find their safe place. That's where they find comfort. And so people are, want that property. And a lot of people have had the opportunity to move out of state, to take advantage of that opportunity that they didn't have prior to the pandemic. So it's opened up opportunities. And I don't necessarily think those opportunities have changed at the moment. And until they do, I think the market continues to do what it's been doing. You've got, again, the millennial home buyers still make up a really good percentage of the home buyers. I mean, they're still turning prime buying age, and a lot of them, again, have lived at home longer than I did, right? I moved out at 18 to go to college, never moved back in. A lot of the young, the millennials out there have stayed at home, have been able to save money, have parents giving them money. I mean, I've had several clients that I've heard help purchase over the last year where their parents helped them with the down payment. I mean, these people are in a position that they were going to receive some sort of inheritance, some sort of something, when the parents passed away, and the parents said, well, instead of doing it in the future, I want to do it now. So I can see my kids enjoy it. And a lot, again, in talking to people locally, a lot of them believe that, if I don't help them now, they may never be able to buy a house. And so that's a scary thing. And so you do have, a lot of parents, grandparents out there helping the millennials get into property. So when people ask who's buying these homes, a lot of them are first-time home buyer millennials. You still have investors that make up part of the market. You have a lot of move-up buyers, right? A lot of people that lived in a property, did well over the last couple of years with regards to equity. They now have kids, they have a family, they need a larger property. And so they're taking that money and moving up to something else. And then you have, again, luxury buyers, people taking money out of equities, looking for a fixed asset, looking to park it someplace. And so they're moving money into real estate. It's kind of a hedge against inflation, if you will. So there's a lot of dynamics that play into it. And I don't think any of that's going to change, at least in the next year, if I had to guess. But that's my 2 cents. Let's see here. McClamrock Rubio Wedding. Hi, Jeb. Been watching your videos for a year. We're now under contract for our first house. Thanks for the information, education you provide. You are very welcome. I appreciate the support and for being here. Thank you. Let's see here. Al has a question. Let's see. Sorry, guys. Normally I could do this while Josh is talking. It's a solo run here. So can realtors talk to buyers about schools? Absolutely. There are certain things that we can't do. We can't redline. We can't, not show property in certain neighborhoods for various reasons, that sort of thing. But schools, we can talk about schools. I mean, if you go to greatschools.org, it's a website. It's one that I use personally. It's one that I refer to clients. You can type in the address where you live, and it will show you the schools that, at least here in Southern California, I'm pretty sure it works a lot of places, but you can type in the address, that you're going to buy. It will tell you the schools associated with that. And it will also give you a rating. Here in the state of California, we have a 1 through 10 rating on schools. Most of the schools where I am are, somewhere around 9s, 10s. So the school districts are very good. I talk about schools all the time. I have 3 kids, young kids. And so it's important, you want to buy in a neighborhood if your kids are going to go to the public schools where the school system is good. And, I don't think there's anything wrong with being able to advise clients and give them that information. But again, it's from a statistical standpoint that, that rating system more or less gives people what they need to hear, more so than anything else. So this is an interesting question. Al says, how about halfway houses or drug rehab houses crime? So he asked him, can we talk about this? So drug houses here, this is really interesting. There are, what do you call them? Houses for rehab. I can't think of the word right off the top of my head, but where, they all live in one house. There's like a house manager, if you will, kind of like a rehab for drinking, for drugs, for whatever. You can't, as a real estate agent, disclose that because you are essentially stereotyping at least this is what I've been told by legal counsel, by other things, that you can't really talk about that per se because you're stereotyping on a certain demographic, if you will. And so it's kind of a touchy subject. Now, if you are a friend and whatever, we might talk about what's going on without talking about that. But it's not something we can just say, hey, listen, don't buy this house because there's a drug house next door or a rehab house next door, that sort of thing. Again, it's one of those things. It's kind of a touchy subject. They could come back and say something, and the buyer, there's not really a way to find out that information. They may be able to go to the county, the city that they live in, and get this information, but there's no public information about it. And so that's one reason that you can't really talk about it, is because it's not, I can't say it's not factual, but there's nothing that actually proves some of the information that you are talking about. So it's kind of a touchy area. Crime, there's websites out there. I think it's like crimereports.org or crimereports. Whatever, where you can actually go in and type in an address, and it will show you all of the stuff that happens around a property with regards to, assault and battery, or that they had to come here for whatever reason. That information's pretty accessible, so anybody can find that information. So there's really not much to talk about there. It's just going to a website and pulling up the info. So hopefully that was helpful. Let's see here. Oh boy, Willing's in here. Let's see. So conservative says, how is the increase to 625 on conventional loan limits affect the market? So it actually went up to 640 something. I don't know the actual amount right off the top of my head. So it went higher than the 625. And here in Orange County, where we are, we're in a high cost area, so it actually takes you up in the 9s for the high balance conforming. I think if you're in a market that has properties, in that price point, it's going to give buyers more of an opportunity to get in property, because they might have been maxed out if they were purchasing limited with conforming loan limits at that time. Here in Orange County, I don't know that it makes much of a difference, just because of where prices have gone. But in other areas of the country where those limits have gone up, it could very well give buyers, that extra push to reach that price point. Maybe they weren't using their full debt to income ratio, or their full budget, if you will, and we're just maxed out on the loan amount itself. And so now this gives them an opportunity to go above that. And so I think in some markets it could help. I have talked about it in a video, and actually looked for it for someone the other day, and I couldn't find it, but I have talked about it. And I do think there is an opportunity for some people that may have been maxed out to get into property. Oh boy. Evan says, you are awesome, but don't shave. Dude, I'm with you. I'm old, man. I'm starting to look really old. It's frustrating. Age, bro. Age. And I look at myself in this camera. Doesn't help. RH, how far for rates to rise until we see unaffordability? I hear 4 to 5%. Honestly, that's too hard to say. I don't think you're going to see rates in the 4 to 5% range anytime soon. There's a lot of people out there that believe you'll never see those rates again, just because the Federal Reserve can't even raise rates that high, just because they can't pay their own debt, if you will. So it difficult question to answer, but I don't think you're going to see 4 to 5% anytime soon. I think prices continuing to rise is going to push affordability for a lot of people, at which point, unless they come out with additional loan programs or something to help people qualify, that's going to be one of the limiting factors on people being able to continue buying. But I don't know where that is. I don't know if the market has to appreciate another 5%, or it has to appreciate another 15, 20% for that to happen. In some markets, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are priced out. Here in Southern California, you're starting to push that threshold. So again, difficult question to answer, but I think you got another couple years in the market moving upward before you really start to see, the market change overall, in my opinion. John Poe, condos with land leases. Yay or nay? Good question. So here in Southern California, where I am in Huntington Beach, there are properties that you can buy, condos, where you don't actually own the land. The land is leased. So a lot of these go back 30, 40 years ago. The land was leased to a builder. The builder built a complex on it, and then the builder essentially leased the land to a management company or whatever to manage the properties. And so the land isn't owned. So when you buy these condos, you're essentially buying a property that at some point, if that lease expires, you could lose the property. You could get nothing. Now, some of these are structured different ways. Some of them, there's some sort of payout on the property at the end of the lease if it's not renewed. Some of them, at least here in Orange County where I'm located, there's nothing. You own nothing at the end of this. So I don't agree with them. I don't think you should purchase a property on leased land. Now, I have some clients that are older, that have money, that don't have family or whatever. And they're like, you know what? I don't care what happens at the end of the lease. I'm going to be dead. So if I lose the property, I lose the property, whatever. One way to look at it, but you're not going to gain the equity that you would in a traditional purchase, if you will, condo or single family or anything for that matter. So you're definitely not going to get the equity that you normally would. In addition, you lose the tax write-off. The land lease isn't tax deductible. And so, I've heard accountants, CPAs being able to get around that. Again, talk to a CPA, don't take my word for it. But I don't believe it's tax deductible. And a lot of these land leases here where I am locally are anywhere between $400 and $800 a month, in addition to the HOA. And the HOAs on these are $300 to, $400 or $500. So you're talking $700 to over $1,000 on some of these land leases. So I'm not a fan of it. Personally, I would say, try to buy something where you own the land, that considered fee simple. You actually own the land underneath the property. So Rick Flores asks, considering rates are stable, when would be the best time to do a cash out refinance to capture the most equity? I think whenever it makes sense, right? I mean, to you, it's not going to be the same answer for everyone. The time to refinance, the time to sell, the time to buy is when the numbers make sense to you, right? So talk to a mortgage professional, have them run the scenario for you. If the payment makes sense to you and the cost makes sense to you and all of it makes sense to you, what I tell people, when you refinance, take the amount of money that you're saving and divide it into how much it costs you to do that loan. So how many months is that going to take to repay it? So if it costs you, say, $5,000 to refinance in cost or whatever, and you're saving $500 per month, then that's going to take you 10 months to recoup that cost. So in a year, you're going to be able to recoup the cost and be able to save money. And if you're planning on keeping the property for more than 10 months, then it probably makes sense to do it. Now, if it's a scenario where you're going to sell in a couple of months or sell in a couple of years and you're not going to recoup the cost for multiple years, then maybe it doesn't make sense. But, trying to pick, the top of equity and the bottom in interest rates is going to be very, very difficult. So you got to go with what works for you. And it's not going to be the same for everyone. So probably not the answer you wanted to hear, but it's the right answer. And if you do need a referral to somebody, there's a link in the description below. You can click on it. Happy to refer you to somebody that can take care of you with regards to refinancing, an expert, if you will. Same thing with regards to buying or selling property, can help you there as well. So Joe asked, just closed on my 2013 home last week. Oh, it was a 2013 build. Got it. And my interest rate is 3.25%. Do you think a refi is realistic next year? Could rates go lower? Hard to say. Rates would have to go down, depending on your loan amount by, probably 0.25% in order to make that refinance realistic. Josh could give you his equation, but again, he's not here. So hard to say. Could it happen? Absolutely. I don't know that it's realistic unless something happens in the market. I think you could probably see more stabilization in rates than anything else. I don't know that you're going to see any huge fluctuations down or up personally, but that's just my 2 cents. Could rates go lower? They absolutely could, but I just don't know if it's realistic. Jeremy says, hey, Jeb, just passed your info along to my cousin selling in Orange County. Appreciate your videos, content. Appreciate your viewpoint on supply demand. Thank you, Jeremy. I remember your comment the other day. I appreciate you. I believe that was Fountain Valley. So thank you for doing that. So Willing actually has a comment that isn't talking about anything else. Let's see here. So my brother is 10 days out from closing on a VA loan for $340,000. He's only 30 years old, married, 2 kids, not much reserves, 25K, landscaping and basement are incomplete. Worried this is a bad idea. Unfortunately can't make those decisions for people, but why would you think it was a bad idea? I guess is my question, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's more about the payment, right? Can he make the payment every month? Is his job stable? That sort of thing. Maybe does his wife work? There's a lot going on there, but you got to be comfortable with the payment. You can't worry so much about the price of the property unless you're planning on selling it in a year or two. Then you worry more about the price. But if you're planning on living there for any period of time, quite frankly, it's less about the price and more about the payment personally. But I mean, if we're going off the numbers that a lot of people believe, that $340,000 home, if it gains 5% in equity over the next year, that's $17,000. So now that $340,000 home is $357,000. Probably paid the principal down, $10,000 or so down on that property. So now there might be a funding fee and all of that stuff. So there's a lot to compute there, but it might not be as bad a deal as you think, especially if they're going to be renting and what are they going to be paying in rent and all that good stuff. So there's a lot of factors to consider. So Al, I answered this question earlier. Go back and check it out. Let's see here. So Verdetta says, any advice for first-time home buyers? What loans are good for us? And is 3.5% and is 3.5% really enough to put down? Thank you so much. So down payment is up to you. I mean, if you have more money to put down, it's not like you're throwing it away, right? It's just like a built-in savings account. It's in your property. At some point in the future, you could gain access to it if you needed it for the most part. You've got to figure out what loan is right for you. I would say talk to a mortgage professional, have them run some scenarios for you. Say, hey, look, this is how much I have to put down. They're going to ask you some questions like that. And then they're going to be able to put together essentially some sort of spreadsheet, if you will, that compares your options. And if you only have 3.5% down, then you really only have 2 options, depending on your credit score. You have a conventional option and you have an FHA option. The conventional option is going to require a higher credit score. FHA, a lower credit score. But the things to think about: do you have money for reserves? Are you comfortable with the payment? Are you stretching yourselves? Those things, right? Those are the things that matter as a first-time home buyer. Don't, and it sounds crazy for me to say, but don't buy a property just to buy a property. Buy a property because it's the right time in your life to do that. And you got to have a longer term time horizon, right? I mean, I've talked about this forever, but I think it's more important now because home prices have been going up since, the last 10 years. Home prices have continued to rise for the most part. And not like I think we need a big, or I see a big pullback in the market, but at some point we need to pull back. It would be normal. It'd be comfortable. It would be a good thing to see some sort of sideways, maybe even some downward movement. As much as people don't want to hear that, that's really what needs to happen. For the market just to settle a little bit. And so if you have a shorter term time horizon, it's, maybe it's not the best time to buy because, you don't know what the market's going to do over the next couple of years. But if you think 7-10 years out, you're probably in a good spot. I mean, I bought my house that I live in now in 2012. And I tell you, it's been 9 years and it's been a quick 9 years. It's flown by. It doesn't, I mean, I think I'd be there 9 years. Honestly, I have no idea, but I've been there longer than I thought I would. And I'm probably going to be there longer than I think I should from now. So I just, have that time horizon. I think that's important in any market, but especially in this one. All right. So Jay Homeboy, real estate is local. How would strategy of buyers be different between neighboring cities, neighboring counties, Bay Area versus Central Valley, NorCal versus SoCal? That's a difficult question to answer. More so than NorCal versus SoCal, just because it's a completely different environment for the most part in how, now, not all of NorCal, but like if you took San Francisco, for example, versus Southern California, where I am, they do things differently in that market. I mean, the way that inspections are done, the way that offers are made, a lot of that stuff, the disclosures are done up front, the inspections done up front, and it's given to the buyer prior to them making an offer. So in that market, a lot of the contingencies are waived. It's super competitive. So you have to do certain things in order to stand out. Southern California, while it's competitive, we don't do things like that, right? In Northern California, a lot of homes are priced under market value to take the price upward, if you will. Here in Southern California, not really a lot of that. So you got to approach it each one a little bit different. As you mentioned, real estate is local, right? So depending on where you are, the market might be different than where I am here in Southern California. But I would tell you, if you're in, say, for example, Orange County, where I am, between San Diego County, Riverside, San Bernardino, Los Angeles, the market's not going to vary that much. It's all low supply, high buyer demand. Things are still moving pretty quickly. Now, you can't compare that to Central Florida, right? That might be a different market. So you need an expert in each one of those markets to be able to tell you, hey, this is what the market's doing here. This is what you need to do. I'm actually going to put a video out on Friday where I talk about what sellers are actually looking at when you make an offer. What do they review? Are they only looking at price? Or are they looking at other things? And give you some advice on how to make that offer. So it will be posted on Friday. Check it out. And hopefully that'll give you a little bit more information, but hard to say between those. It's, too difficult to answer without knowing exactly where you're looking. And even if I did, probably wouldn't be able to advise you because I don't know those markets. Prime Objective, prices are out of control. They are out of control. Did you change your name? I recognize the picture, but I feel like there was another name associated with it. Let's see here. Jennifer is back. So MM754, don't know where all these buyers lived before. A lot of them lived at home. Another thing I see at the moment too is a lot of multi-generational living. Families, older living with the younger, buying houses together. You have some of that. So there's a lot of factors playing into why the market's doing what it's doing at the moment. And it's honestly like, who cares? Like, I mean, at the end of the day, why do you care? I mean, I'm not, this is not an insult to your question. I'm thinking out loud. Like, at the end of the day, if you want to buy a house, why do you care who's buying houses? Whether it's investors, first-time home buyers, doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day, if you're looking to buy a house, all you care about is what the price of that house is going to cost you and when is it going to go up or down or when should you buy or whatever. Too many people get caught up in the external factors of buying property and don't focus on the things that actually matter. I mean, and again, it supply and demand, right? If something is going to change that's what you need to focus on, versus wondering why people are buying, who are all the buyers. Too many people get caught up in Zillow's buying all these houses and that's what's driving up prices. It is what it is. I mean, unfortunately, that's the market that you're in. So those are the things that you've got to deal with. Now, at the moment, they're out of the market. So we'll see how that plays into next year. I don't know that you're really going to see a big change overall in housing. I think there's still enough investors. I feel like there's still another corporate money, enough big conglomerates, if you will, on the equity side looking to buy property. So I think taking Zillow out of the market, it might open up some opportunities, but it's going to open them for somebody else to come in and grab them, in my 2 cents. So Joseph, clearly I'm not used to doing this. My throat is killing me talking by myself. Joseph is asking, what is your price appreciation forecast for Santa Clarita? Don't have one. Don't know the market well enough. I know where Santa Clarita is. I think here in Southern California, you're probably going to see somewhere between mid single digits to high single digits for price appreciation. Somewhere in that ballpark. I wouldn't be surprised to see 7, 8, 9, 10% in appreciation next year. But obviously a hard factor to predict just because we don't know some of the ancillary factors like rates, what's going to happen with inventory, all that good stuff. David says, when does inventory generally start to trend up in a regular season trend in SoCal? So we typically start to see more properties come to the market around Super Bowl. Now, Super Bowl actually has nothing to do with it. It's just, a marker, if you will, on the calendar. Typically the first weekend of February. That's when we start to see, the spring selling season, if you will, start to pick up. More homes start to come to the market. I think this year is going to be similar. I actually wouldn't be surprised as the market turns over to start seeing more homes come to the market. Going to be interesting. I think there's a lot of people out there that are looking to take advantage of prices because they're high. But a lot of those people, in my opinion, haven't really thought about where they're going to go, what they're going to do, what they're going to buy when they sell those properties. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I think early February was really when you start to see more properties, and that's probably going to continue through, early summer. And then typically, we get into the end of summer, things start to slow down. So MM754 never understood why people refinance their 30-year mortgage to 15 years, considering 30-year rates are at historical lows compared to 10-year rates or 15-year rates. I mean, some people want to pay off their home as quickly as possible. When I was on the mortgage side of things for over 10 years, I always told people, if you're considering a 15-year, take the 30-year if you can, and just make the 15-year payment, if you will, right? I mean, pay it down quicker, And that way, if you get into some sort of bind, you're not in a position where you have to make that 15-year payment. Now, a lot of people don't have the discipline to do that and would never actually follow through. But, people that want to pay off their mortgage sooner, the 15-year gives them an opportunity to do that. We saw crazy rates on 15-year loans this year. I mean, people being able to take advantage of rates in the high 1% range, 1.9, 1.99% on 15 years. It's crazy. Some of those rates that were out there, and people got a great opportunity to take advantage of them, but it's not for everyone, right? I mean, the payment isn't necessarily double, but it's a lot higher than it would be on a 30-year. So, if you can discipline yourself to take the 30-year payment, a 30-year loan rather, and pay it down in a 15-year payment based on the amortization schedule, you give yourself some flexibility if you need it, but it's not for everyone. So Jeffrey says, Jeb, thanks for answering my question. Is it bad business to refi a month after you close and screw my broker commission without waiting for 6 months? My rate is at 3%. So I would have a hard time. I mean, I don't know how you would refinance at this point and take advantage of a lower rate than 3% for one, but is it bad practice? I would advise against it. I mean, at the end of the day, what happens is when a broker does your loan, a lot of times the banks pay them for doing the loan, right? They're able to offer you a no-cost loan, but the bank is paying them. And if you refinance that loan or get rid of that loan before 6 months is up, that broker has to pay back that commission. And so, if you can avoid doing it, I would say do so. Wait, maybe have a conversation with that broker and tell him what you're trying to do. I mean, I have a good, obviously with Josh, I mean, we have a great relationship. I know a lot of people have a conversation with him and say, hey, look, thinking of doing this. And he has a conversation and says, hey, listen, can we wait until X time and continue to follow rates? And at that time, I'll be able to do it and maybe do a no-cost loan and take, so that they don't get screwed on the deal. But you got to do what's right for you. At the end of the day, I think you'll have a really hard time finding a rate lower than 3% unless something has changed. But the answer to your question is if you can wait, do it. All right. All about real estate. Thanks for all you do. What's up? Thank you. Appreciate the support. Appreciate you coming in and saying nice things. I appreciate that. I'm just reading some of these comments and laughing out loud. Let's see. So Ortit1 says the title indicates it's going up. So yeah, I mean, again, I think the market, I mean, he's talking about the thumbnail of the video, the title of the video. I personally think the market's going to continue to do what it's doing. My opinion, clearly not everyone's opinion. There's a lot of different opinions out there. Mine's more based again on supply and demand. a lot of the different factors in the market, some experts that I read, follow, that sort of thing. I don't think you're going to see a lot of change. I don't think you're going to see a market as hot as this year, as 2021, but I do think it's going to be a competitive market for a lot of people out there. So Jennifer says the like button is buyer and seller friendly. Hit it, please. So I would like to take a moment here. There's 150 people on, and ask a question, and say if you don't mind, if you find any value in the content, hit the thumbs up. It does help me. It helps YouTube share the video based on their algorithms, and helps other people see it. It's the Wednesday before Christmas. I could be home with my family. I'm here in my office giving you guys some information, which hopefully you find value in and can help you in the process. So thank you for doing that. That's all I ask. I'm not asking for anything else, people. That's it. Let's see what we got. So Eli has a question. Eli was here last week, I believe. So it seems like dual agency is the correct approach in this market. What's the buyer's agent's job when we have access to Redfin, Zillow to find the property of interest? If you have an expert on your side, the value in your buyer's agent is far beyond anything you can get from Redfin and Zillow. And clearly you're going to say, well, you're a real estate agent, you're going to say that. I can tell you from years of negotiating real estate deals on the selling side and the buying side, I can do negotiation non-emotional, right? I working with dual agency, working with the same agent on both sides, typically that agent, whether or not they want to admit it, has loyalty to one side or the other. And so that can be troublesome, right? I mean, that can be problematic in many ways. They don't want to lose the deal on either side. And so they're, not willing to ruffle feathers. Whereas me as a buyer's agent, if we negotiate and you want to draw a line in the sand, we draw a line in the sand. It is what it is. We'll find you another property. At the end of the day, don't really care if you buy that property or buy another one, as long as you're happy. I think you're less likely to find dual agency doing the same thing. Now, are there some dual agencies that can do it right? Absolutely. But it's a gray area for the most part. And again, the information that you find from Zillow and Redfin isn't always accurate. I would tell you, if you're using their Zestimates and their numbers with regards to where you think you should offer a property, I would say that is number one mistake right there. As an agent that represents both buyers and sellers, I can tell you those numbers are not accurate by any means. Finding an agent that understands the market, the direction the market's going, if you will, how to make an offer that's competitive, how to do certain things in order to stand out is key. And at the end of the day, you pay the buyer's agent nothing. I mean, that's the win-win for you. As far as the selling, as far as going with the other agent, that agent is getting compensated again by you coming directly to them. So they're less likely to be willing to do certain things in order to get you the property. But just my 2 cents on that one. Let's see here. A lot of questions. Michael says, as a first-time home buyer shopping a market like Newport Beach, what would you advise buying now or continue to rent and plan to buy in 1 to 2 years? Current cash on hand is limited, and I have an 800 credit score. So it's a difficult question to answer because you don't know the full scenario. But you got to buy when it's the right time, right? The right time for you. I think personally that in 1 to 2 years, home prices are going to be higher than where they are now. And what you don't know is you don't know where interest rates are. You don't know where, other things are in your life at that time. And so buying that property in 1 to 2 years is probably, in my opinion, going to cost you more money, but you shouldn't buy it now. If that's the only reason you're buying it, because you think it's going to go up. It's got to be the right time in your life for many reasons. But you also need to have, reserves. You need to have money in the bank. You need to have, other things in place, that longer term time horizon, like I mentioned, and you're going to be fine. But other than that, it's, again, a difficult question to answer without really knowing, the full scenario, renting, your rent's going to continue to go up. It is, especially in Newport Beach, right? I mean, chances are it's going to go up year over year. And if it doesn't go up year over year, it's going to go up every couple of years. And if inflation is real, then rents are going to continue to rise. And the people out there, the smart money's parking their money in real estate to hedge against inflation. So I think if you can buy a property now, I think you'll be setting yourself up for a much better position in the future. But again, it's got to be the right time for you. Videos Galore is asking, are refinances strictly 15 and 30 years? Can you ask to have, say, a 20-year refinance or a 23-year refinance? Yes. Yeah, you can have a lender structure the term of your loan based on, if, for example, you have a 23-year loan now and you want to refinance, instead of going back to a 30-year loan, you can have them do another 23-year loan. That way you're not adding any years to the term of your loan. You're going to save less money doing it that way, but if you're looking to pay off your property, that's the smarter way to do it. But yes, you can absolutely do that. Let's see here. Here's a name I haven't seen in a while. Seer Guru. It's been a while. It's been quite some time. Good to see you back in the chat. So crazy TV? Not sure. CZY TV? Have you seen 3.3 to 3.4 interest rates at closing? What's the highest you've seen? Well, I mean, I came from the days of, interest rates at 7-8%. So I've seen rates up there, but I don't really follow interest rates so much because I'm on the real estate side. So I don't really see what my buyers get for the most part. I don't ask them, hey, what interest rate did you get on your loan? Unless they bring it up, it's not a conversation that I have because I don't get involved in their finances. But I think typically at the moment, rates are in the low 3% range, probably 3.25%. Could rates be higher than that? Absolutely. Depends on a lot of different factors. The type of loan you're doing, if you're occupying it versus investment, all that good stuff. So there's a lot that goes in it, but I have seen interest rates a lot higher, just not recently. MM74 coming in with a lot of questions tonight. Let's see here. How accurate is Zillow's data on the number of properties sold by a specific agent? If an agent doesn't even show up there, does it mean they haven't closed any deals at all, or does Zillow lack the data? So a couple things goes on here. So I don't know if Zillow, for one, you got to have a profile on Zillow. So you got to set that profile up. So if their profile doesn't even show up, that doesn't mean anything. It just means they haven't taken the time to do it. Now, there was a time when I had a profile, I focused on reviews, I focused on all that stuff with Zillow because people were looking at it. I don't care anymore about Zillow because, again, they're a competitor of us as real estate agents now. Wasn't a fan of some of the things they were doing in the market. I guess we could go back to that now, but I wasn't having reviews. I wasn't posting property on there that I had sold. So it can be accurate or it can't be. I mean, that's not really the answer you want to hear. But I mean, I'll pull mine up real quick here just to see what it says, see if it's accurate or not. Sometimes it shows all of them. Sometimes it doesn't, but let's just see what it says. So mine at the moment looks to be pretty accurate. It's missing a couple of sales. So it says I have 26 sales in the last 12 months. I've had over 30 this year. So some of them aren't populating, but some of them had a co-buyer's agent on them. And so they might be populating on the other person's site. So, but I would say for the most part, probably pretty accurate. If they're an active real estate agent, they should have a profile. And there's other websites out there you can go to get that information as well. So hopefully that's helpful, but I wouldn't do my research based on just solely that, right? Maybe you can have a conversation with the agent and ask them, a list of some properties they've sold, and they can provide you with that information as well. So Gabby says, plan on staying here for 5 to 7 years before moving to another state. Is that long enough time horizon? So I think, that's generally what I say, 5, 7, 10 years, I think is enough. I don't think, I'm not really concerned what happens in a year or 2 years. again, the longer term time horizon is just more so you can get the ebbs and flows of the market, right? I mean, there's just like the stock market, right? I mean, stocks don't go up every single day. And if you have a longer term time horizon, take Warren Buffett, for example, he's done pretty well just holding things, adding to them over time, continuing to build wealth. Real estate's not exactly the same thing, but you've got to have some time built in there because time allows fluctuations, right? If the market does pull back 20%, 30% at some point over a period of time, that time gives you time for that real estate to come back. And that's what it's about. It's, there's the saying that says, don't wait to buy real estate and wait. Same thing. The longer term time horizon you are, the better off you'll be in the long run. Smart Soccer, is there a limit on how many rentals you can cash out refi? Could potentially pull out 800,000 from primary and 4 rentals, keeping 30% equity in each property. Love the content. Happy holidays. So happy holidays. Appreciate the support on the content. No, you can do cash out refinance on every single one of them. Especially if you're, classifying one as a primary and your other 4 as rentals and doing them as rental properties. There shouldn't be any problem with that. And you could do them all at the same time if you wanted, assuming you can qualify for the higher payments on the new mortgages. But you should be good to go there. If you need somebody, reach out and can definitely put you in touch with somebody. Says he would use the cash out to purchase more rentals. A lot of people doing that at the moment. A lot of people pulling equity out of property and putting it into other properties. So, if it makes sense, I think it's a good opportunity to take advantage of it. So Naima says it's better to buy brand new or old houses. This is kind of a personal preference thing. Typically speaking, at least here in Southern California, I'm going to take a drink real quick. The newer houses, the new construction is further away from central, where everything is going on, right? Because there's less land. So they have to go further and further out to build properties, which makes it further and further from everything. But they continue to build, new schools, new shopping centers and whatever in those areas over time. So it's, it doesn't seem as far out. And again, here in Southern California, newer construction is typically further away from, say, the beach or that sort of thing. But it's a personal preference. Some people just don't want an older house, right? More maintenance, more potential issues coming up down the road. Here in Southern California, newer houses mean smaller lots. You don't get the lots that you used to because, builders are trying to maximize profit. And they do that by building houses, typically 2-story houses, 3-story houses on smaller lots to give you, the square footage, but in a smaller space, if you will, versus, in the 60s or whatever, when homes were built, they were a lot of single level homes built on larger lots. So a preference thing. When I look at property, I'm not necessarily looking for new construction. That's just me personally. There's other things to consider, but a lot of it comes down to location. So if you can find a new home in the area that you want to be that fits what you want, then maybe it's the right opportunity. But a lot of times those properties, you're paying more money for them because of the newer construction. So, you got to factor all that stuff in. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. You just got to do what's right for you. Honey says, no comment on the Poway question. So earlier asked about the market in Poway. Did I miss it? Is it mainly single family home supply? And it's a bit special. So what are my thoughts on the housing market in Poway in 2022, next 5 years, given it's mainly single family home supply and is a bit special area in San Diego? Honestly, I don't know it well enough to be able to give you accurate information. I can tell you San Diego, very desirable market, probably the best climate, depending on where you are in San Diego in the world. It's beautiful, pretty much year round, great climate. So it's going to be a desirable market always. But again, it's each little pocket is a little bit different. I don't know Poway enough to be able to give you an accurate assessment, but I can tell you that I don't think it's, much is going to change there over the next year. Now, what happens in 5 years, very hard to say. But I know a lot of great agents down there, a lot. In fact, one that I do a lot of business with. If you need somebody, let me know. I can put you in touch. So Dar was here. As my new house has zero equity because I used USDA. The market means nothing to me at this point. Wish I could pay extra right now, but that's a pipe dream. Oh well. So, yeah. So with USDA mortgages, you can purchase 100% financing, no money out of pocket. There are requirements that allow you that you need in order to purchase using USDA. It has to be deemed a rural area. There's other things that go into it, but that's really the main one. So again, if you need to know more about USDA, I've done a video on it. You can search it on my channel. And if you need somebody that does USDA, you can reach out to me and I can put you in touch with someone there. Let's see. Mosin Virus. Thanks for taking the time to go live so close to the holidays. Am I wrong to think that one of the factors that will continue to drive demand is how attractive of an investment real estate is? No, I agree with that, right? I mean, again, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, real estate's a hedge against inflation. It's a fixed asset. You can know exactly what you're paying, how much you're going to pay per month versus renting or, anything else in the market that might be inflated by a rise in prices over the next coming years. So, if you're a real estate investor, if you want a fixed return, you don't want to worry about where equities are going, where other investments are going. Real estate provides that for you for the most part, right? You might have some adjustment in real estate taxes or HOA if the property has an HOA. But for the most part, you kind of have an idea of what's going to bring in every month. And people want that, especially in an environment that people don't really know where things are going, right? They want some security. Real estate provides that. Even with higher values, it still provides that sense of security. What would I like for Christmas this year? P.S. Santa is listening. I don't want to say I don't really want anything. I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm happy where I am. I have everything I need. How's that? I know it seems like a crazy thing to say, cliche, but it really is. I am in a good position. I'm fortunate and happy. So what I would like is a slower housing market. Seems crazy. I'm a real estate agent, but a slower housing market would be a good thing for everyone. So that's what I would like this year. Slowing in the sense that we don't see the appreciation that we saw last year. So Rob says, what happens when LIBOR expires? I don't understand the question entirely. So elaborate a little bit. When you mean it expires. So Naima says, if I buy a brand new house, it means I take a loan from them or I can have a loan from others too. So if you're buying new construction, typically speaking, those builders have their lenders on site. They want you to use their lenders, because they have more control of the transaction if you do decide to use their lender. But you're not required to do that. You can use anyone you want. A lot of times they'll incentivize you to try to use your lender or use their lender because again, they'll incentivize you by giving you credits to their designer. I can't think the upgrades, the builder upgrades. They'll give you credits for upgrades in the property, that sort of thing by using their lender. But again, those lenders typically, in my experience, will charge you higher interest rates than those of a mortgage broker. And that there's costs being made back in some form or fashion. So it's not free upgrades by using them. You're paying for probably part of it by using them, but you're not required to use them. I would say get a second opinion regardless. Compare the two and go with who makes the most sense on paper. Right? The numbers never lie. Josh would say the numbers never lie. They don't lie. Look at both options side by side, and you decide which one is the better fit. So Leroy Jinx, sorry, missed the beginning. Think the housing market will continue to boom in 2022. So the easy answer is yes. I do think you're going to continue to see appreciation. I'll leave it at that. You can go back and watch the beginning if you want more information on it. Jeb, your sober living answers help me dig deeper. Looks like an article in the OC Register is showing Costa Mesa getting tougher on them. HB is watching closely. Yeah, there's a lot of cities out there that don't like sober living. That's what I was looking for earlier. That's the word I was looking for. I couldn't think of it. Sober living. A lot of people that live in residential communities where sober living is. I mean, here in Orange County, I think the requirement, or it was at one point, is as long as you had no more than 6 people living in a house, there didn't have to be a permit or anything filed with regards to sober living. You could just have a sober living house and there was no requirement on it. I don't know what's happened over the last, say, year or so since the pandemic with regards to that. I haven't really followed it. It's hasn't been on my radar, so to speak. But cities are cracking down on it because what you have is investors going in and buying property, sticking a lot of people in them, making a huge return on the investment, so to speak, but somewhat terrorizing neighborhoods at the same time. So the neighbors don't want it. It can affect property values in those markets. So I think it's smart for cities to figure out some rules and regulations that crack down on this thing, having some permits, having things that are in place, because it's something that needs to be considered. And the same thing with short-term rentals. I mean, it's the same. It's not the same thing by any means, but it has the same effect when people come in for a short period of time and potentially affect the values of a neighborhood. And, there are more cities cracking down on it, coming up with regulations and rules in order to put them in place. Some cities are removing short-term rentals altogether because of the effect on neighboring cities and that sort of thing. So I think it's smart that, if Costa Mesa is doing something, that it's time. It's about time. What's the average income of a real estate agent? This is a good question. What do you think the average income of a real estate agent is? That's what I want. That you'll be really surprised with that answer. I think, we're at the highest number of licensed real estate agents ever at the moment. I don't know what the number is. I saw it the other day. It was like 1.5 million. I don't know the number. I can't remember the stats. We're at the highest number ever, right? Because what happens is when the market does well, everybody gets a real estate license and, they're an expert at that point. But the average income is a lot less than you think it is. I think it's like $32,000 the last time I saw it. And that's before taxes. So the majority of agents out there aren't killing it in real estate, right? I mean, a lot of people have a real estate license, don't use it. A lot of people have a license, use it one time to buy their own property or help a family member sell and buy property. But for the most part, it's pretty low in the big scheme, in the big picture versus what a lot of people believe that the agents make. So it's the Pareto principle, right? 20% of the agents do 80% of the business. And it's probably even more skewed than that. I would say the top 10% probably do 90% of the business nationwide. That's just, it's the nature of the business, right? People get into it, think it's an easy job. It's very flexible on schedule. You don't have to work that hard. It's a bit of a surprise. I cry myself to sleep every night. Kidding, but it's more difficult than people think. Aura says, good evening. Thank you for taking the time to answer my question. My family and I are considering buying a home in North San Diego. Are there any programs for first-time homeowners? Please advise. No, not really. I mean, when people think first-time home buyer programs, they're thinking of some sort of assistance. For the most part, at least that's my experience. California doesn't really have any of those. Any of the first-time home buyer programs that were out there were eliminated when Jerry Brown was governor. In order to balance the budget, they were done and were never brought back. Now there are some Cal HAFA and some other things that you can do with FHA that allow, some help with regards to down payment and that sort of thing. So there are, but they're difficult to get accepted in the environment that we're in, for one. And also, if you're thinking first time home buyer, like loans, everybody says, well, FHA is a first time home buyer loan. No, it's for anyone. People associate it with first time home buyers just because they allow a lower down payment. Conventional also has a 3% down option. So there are options out there if you don't have a down payment at all. I mean, a lower down payment, but if you're looking for something with no down payment, it's going to be difficult in North San Diego to get anything through. But if you do want to have a conversation with a broker, reach out to me. Again, there's a link in the description. I can put it up on the screen here in a minute. if you want to have a conversation with somebody, I'm happy to put you in touch with somebody that can help. Let's see here. Too good. Too good. Let's see. So Videos Galore says, how can you figure out if your local market is still hot in 2022? By the amount of sold listings in the last 30 days, the amount of daily listings, or when best and highest offer is not a thing. So, I mean, you're going to be able to gauge it just based on, follow. I mean, you're going to have to be able to, for a real estate agent, it's pretty easy because we have access to more information. But until you see, supply really change, you're not going to see a change in the housing market. But how can you tell it's hot? When properties close, typically they show whether they closed at the asking price or above the asking price in how many days, that sort of thing. I think the average days on market at the moment, based on the last existing home sales report, which was published yesterday, is 18 days. So 18 days, nationwide, for homes going into escrow. That's really quick. Now, here in Southern California, it's probably more like 7 or 8 days on market that property's going to escrow. So if you start to see days on the market trend longer, you start to see inventory build, you start to see properties not selling above the asking price, then, the market might not be as hot. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's true either, right? Properties could be overpriced, and that's why they're not selling above the asking price. But I would talk to an agent, right? Have a conversation. Just say, hey, what's the market doing? What should I expect? What are you seeing? As a buyer, you're going to know really quick when you're out there looking at property how hot the market is. I mean, if you're I have buyers that are still putting in offers that I've been working with for 6 months. Now, they're not putting in offers every weekend. They're putting in an offer, every couple of weeks, once a month, whenever they see a property that meets their, fits the bill, if you will. We go out and look at it. That's a property I want to put in an offer on, and they're still getting outbid. So as a buyer, you're going to know pretty quickly. Outside of that, just, days on the market, inventory, those are things to kind of keep an eye on. And if you see a change, then, continue to follow it, but talk to an agent. That's your best bet. All right. So mortgage was signed with LIBOR index in 2017. 5-1 ARM loan expires next December. Whoa, the light just came on. Hold on a second here. What just happened? All right. Mortgage was signed with LIBOR index in 2017. 5-1 ARM loan expires next December, and also the LIBOR index fund. I got a letter in the mail stating there will be an adjustment to a new index. Thoughts? So, okay, so your loan is adjusting next year. What happens? So it's going to adjust to whatever that index is, plus, depending on in this time, it's tied to the LIBOR. So I don't know. Based on the new index, it's going to adjust to probably a higher rate than what you have at the moment, just because rates are trending up. That's a difficult question. I would tell you, email me, the specifics. I'll put you in touch with Josh or somebody that can answer it in more detail. But you're either going to have to refinance into a new loan, or depending on the type of index that you're on, that means that your loan's going to adjust every year until you fix that rate again, right? So unless you have a fixed rate, you're going to continue to get an adjustment in that rate as the market changes every year, if you will. So again, email me. I'll put you in touch with somebody that can answer the question in more detail. I don't follow the LIBOR or any short-term interest rates these days, so I don't know what it's adjusting to, but I do have somebody that can answer the question for you. So hopefully that helps you. Yeah, I do think, if rates are going up, the change in the index could, to answer the second part of your question, could mean that rates are going higher. So chances are, as it adjusts from a 5-year to something else, you're likely to see a higher rate. Dar is asking a question. Dar was here. In my opinion, do I think will take a long time to sell a condo in a retirement community in Florida? I hear their market is good. again, it's going to come down to supply and demand. I don't know which retirement community you're talking about. What's the big one there? I can't think of the name of it. I've had clients move there. It's like an entire city. One of you guys is going to pop in here and tell me what it is, but typically if it's priced right, you got a lot of, people from the Northeast, you got a lot of Canadians looking to migrate south. And if it's priced right, it's probably going to sell. But hard to say without knowing the market, entirely. But I think as long as supply stays low, it's going to continue. The market's going to continue to move. It is what it is. I mean, unfortunately, it's not what people want to hear, but it's the reality. Lakewood Ranch. That's not what I was thinking of, but it'll come to me as soon as I get off this call. It's like an entire city, and it's all retirement. They have golf courses. They have everything. Oh, Lakewood Ranch is not the name of the neighborhood I was thinking of. So good question. Cream Disco. Purchased my home about 10 months ago. Its estimated price is already $120,000 above what I paid. What are the biggest bang per buck improvements that I could do to add value to my property? So here is a misconception. People think I put $50,000 into a property, it goes up $50,000. Not true, right? There are certain things that you can do to properties that add more value. Typically, those are, kitchens, bathroom remodels. Those are typically the most important for a lot of buyers out there. Some other things you can do are painting the exterior, curb appeal things, garage, door. They add value to a property, but a lot of these things, for the most part, especially in the environment that we're in right now, it adds value, but it more so, appeals to more buyers. So buyers are more willing to offer on a property, may pay more for that property because these things are done. Because a lot of buyers coming in don't have the money to do additional upgrades once they buy a property. So they want a property completely finished, if you will. And so people are willing to pay more money for that. But I would focus again on, the big ticket items are kitchens, bathroom remodels. But as far as from a standpoint of, a solid buying a house that if you were going to do like, let me think how to put this, improvements that no one sees, things like the roof, the HVAC, the water heater. These things are all really important in a house. When I'm showing a client a property and it doesn't have all the other upgrades in a property, like the kitchen and the bathroom, but all of the major things have been done to the property, again, like the roof, the water heater, the HVAC, all of that stuff, those are costly ticket items that, that at some point are going to need to be done. Your kitchens, your bathrooms don't necessarily have to be done. It's more of an aesthetic thing. But it gives you an opportunity to move into the property and make it your own over time. But if you're going to do them to try to add value, kitchens and bathrooms are it. That was a long way of getting to where I was going with that. And I don't even know that I answered your question entirely, but hopefully that helped you. None of those cities you guys named were what I was thinking of. I'm going to come up with it and let you know, but that's not it. Oh, people are so misinformed. Again, windows. Jennifer mentioned windows. Those are also good for energy efficiency. But you're also in Indiana, I believe. It doesn't, here in Southern California, energy efficiency is, it's needed, but it's not 100% necessary just because our climate is pretty timid. All right. I think we're down to the bottom of questions here for the moment. So Patriot says, would I recommend someone to be a real estate agent? Yeah, as long as your expectations are realistic. Again, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people go into the business because they think it's easy money. They think you have all the time in the world, that all your friends and family are going to use you to sell a house. You're not going to have to work. If you're getting into real estate because of that, you're going to be sadly mistaken. It is flexible to some extent, but I'm always on the phone. I go on a vacation, I'm answering my phone. I have limits now, but for a long time I didn't. And I would answer my phone at night. I would answer it on the weekends. I would do certain things. Now, my priorities are in place, and you've got to get to a point where you can be there. And your friends and family, I'll be honest, aren't all going to use you. You're going to have to build relationships. You're going to have to show people what you're doing in order for them to use you, especially in a market that's competitive like the one we're in now. I think it's a great business. It offers a huge amount of opportunity, and it's pretty eye-opening to a lot of things. So I think it's a great career, but again, you gotta be realistic about it. So I would recommend it as long as those things are the Villages. Yes, that's it. The Villages. BB coming in with the answer. It's like an entire city, that place. Might even be a county. I don't know. But again, what I was saying is as long as you're realistic expectations, then yeah, go for it. It's a great deal. But I think you already sold a house, so you're already there. Dar says, will painting a house add any value? I don't know that it adds any value, but again, it might help the home appeal to more buyers, right? Some people can't see past paint, just like some people can't see past bad flooring or bad carpet or whatever. They get caught up in it versus just being able to see that, hey, if I replace this, then the property will improve, visually. Fortunately, I have the ability to do that. I can see past carpet and paint, but a lot of people can't. So carpet and paint, if you want to change a property immediately, those two things can help you considerably, but they don't necessarily add value. That it's just going to appeal to more buyers for the most part, right? More buyers might mean more competition. Demand drives price. And so the more demand you have, the higher price you might get. And so if it appeals to more people, then you might end up getting a higher price. But as far as paper goes, if you spend, $5,000 painting a property, doesn't mean it's worth $5,000 more. Angela said, I thought it was a swinger resort. It very well could be. I have no idea. But a bunch of retirement people swinging doesn't sound like very much fun. Just saying. All right. Didn't know we were going there tonight, but we did. Might be time to end this now that I've gone that direction. H. Gray, Jeb, do you know about trustee sales, such as how much the few homes being foreclosed on presently are going for, such as reverse mortgage foreclosed when owed is way less than value? I know a lot about trustee sales, but I'm not seeing any real value in foreclosed properties at the moment. I just talked about it on video. I think if you're looking to buy a foreclosure in this market, just expect that you're going to pay fair market value for the property, unless it's, a truly a property that needs work. And in which case, those properties typically are picked up by investors. If there's any real value in a home at the moment, it's going to have demand. And with that demand is likely going to mean a higher price. Just, again, my 2 cents on that. M. Hewitt, is it better to refinance or sell your home if you're building a new one? So that's up to you, right? I mean, if you're going to keep I tell people, if you can afford to keep a property, refinancing, keeping it is great. I don't think you'll have long-term any real regrets in doing that. Now, if you plan on selling it anyway, then it might not be worth it to refinance, because you might be paying a cost to refinance, and your savings might not be there if you're going to sell it in the period of time. I always say take the amount you save, divide it into how much it costs you to do it. Earlier, the example was if it costs you $5,000 and you're saving $500 a month in refinancing, then you need to keep that property 10 months in order to make back your costs. So if you're planning on selling within that period of time, then you probably shouldn't refinance. But if refinancing gives you an opportunity to keep the property and have more cash flow, then that's what you should consider. Outside of that, it's a difficult question to answer. Let me see. Now, Rob asked a question. I don't really have anything here. What happens when we hit deflation, 30-year fixed rate, or when the dollar collapses and when we go digital? Does the loan get readjusted to higher rates or negative terms? It would affect the investor. At the moment, we're not in deflation. Hard to say what happens if we go digital. Again, a lot going on there. I don't think that we're going to fully go digital anytime soon with regards to currency. What happens if the dollar collapses? Again, a lot going on there. Not really much I can help you with, unfortunately, just because a lot of it is predictions that I honestly don't necessarily agree with. So it's just again, difficult question to answer. As a resident of a house being foreclosed upon, do I have a priority on bidding? No, probably not, unless the company is working with you. If it's being foreclosed upon by the bank or whatever, no, there's no priority there. Everybody's gonna have an opportunity to bid on it for the most part, unless I'm missing something. But traditionally speaking, it goes back to the bank. The bank either hires a company or does some sort of foreclosure proceedings themselves, and it'll get sold on the courthouse steps, and anybody there can bid on it. The resident doesn't get a priority. With the real estate market being so intense these past 2 years, have you had buyers regret their purchase and tried to sell? So, personally, no. But I have been contacted recently by 2 people that did purchase this year. I didn't help them buy their homes, but both of them are selling for various reasons. One, going, a couple months after purchasing the property, realized that a husband and wife going to get a divorce, so they're going to end up selling the property. So that was a change. And then one didn't like the city that they moved to and is considering purchasing something in another city. So there's regrets there, but not necessarily for the reasons that you think. The second one more so, right? Bought in a city they didn't really want to be in, end up selling it. I think you're going to have opportunity. I mean, there's going to be cases like that across the United States. People made rash decisions, quick decisions, ended up not liking what they did for one reason or another. I know people personally that I didn't help them, but purchased in Texas a couple of years ago, moved to Austin, bought new construction. 6 months they were there, they hated it, and ended up renting that property out, moving back to California. So I think, again, you're going to have cases like that where people thought the grass was greener, and it wasn't, right? It was, same problems, different place. So yeah, you're going to have those scenarios, but I don't have any personally at the moment. My Dualore. Jeb, there are YouTubers out there that spread news such as the housing market crashing. Who are YouTubers you recommend viewers to watch to gain accurate information and knowledge? So, there's several out there. Depends on what information you want to get. Here in California, Jason Walter in Northern California does a lot of factual statistical information on California per se. Gives you, up-to-date, accurate information without spreading a lot of fear. You've got Javier Vidana, who you've probably heard of. He's in Arizona in the Phoenix market. Again, does a lot of videos on just helping you navigate the housing market. Not really housing crash videos or talking about the housing market so much as to just, information that you can use as a home buyer, which is good. Win the House You Love. Kyle Seagraves has a great channel, very much like I mentioned with Javier, just providing you accurate, up-to-date information. And then you have people in cities, right, that are more city-based. Like if you're moving to Austin, Texas, Jeremy Knight does great information on that market. Christina Smallhorn, she's not localized. She's more of the Javiers and the Win the House You Love that I mentioned. Also good information, a lot of affordability, a lot about talking about just the market in general, not spreading fear. So there's a lot of good information out there. You just gotta weed out the crap to get to it. So, and if you need those channels, you can always email me. I'm happy to put you in, give you a link to all of them and help you there. So let's see here. What Blast from the past. What are the downsides of purchasing a flipped home where the flippers look to spend as little as possible? That's your downside. I see a lot of flip properties here in Southern California. They're very obvious when you go into them. You know, in my experience, the downsides typically they cut a lot of corners. Not all flippers do this. There are flippers out there that do quality work, that do things the right way. I would say that's not the majority. A lot of people cut corners, put lipstick on a pig. Gosh, coming in here. I don't know.
I heard lipstick on a pig, and so I thought that was my cue. Was I come in at lipstick on a pig?
Yeah, that actually was your cue. So good to see you, my friend. I'll just finish answering this question. Actually, Josh can answer this question too a little bit here. But we're talking about the downsides of purchasing a flipped home. A lot of corners cut, a lot of, again, lipstick on a pig. Visually, it might look appealing to the person that's not detail oriented. So it's important to have that person help you, right? As a real estate agent, you know, I say I'm detail oriented, and in some parts of my life I'm not. But when I go through property, I very much am with other properties because I kind of pick them apart, and it's more so to help my clients see things that they might not see. Because again, I say it all the time, buying is emotional, and people justify logically. So people don't look at, you know, the small things in a property. They get more focused on the big picture of the property and miss these things. And in flip properties, you can do that. And the other downside to a flip property is a lot of times they look all the same. Like your flip property looks exactly like the other one that flipped. They look, you know, they all have the same flooring, the same countertops, the same cabinets, the same paint, the same everything. Which at the moment that a lot of people are, you know, that's the trend that's in style. But I think in 5, 7, 10 years, people are going to look back and go, shit, like all of these properties look exact. My house looks just like yours, looks just like that one. So, Josh, you flip properties. Thoughts on people?
Yeah, having flipped nearly 50 properties, over 40 properties, we pride ourselves on doing it right. If something needs to be done, you figure out what's right with the property, what's wrong with the property, and getting it dialed in. If you've already picked up on where the flippers look to spend as little as possible, run, don't walk from that property. Because if you can visually see that they're cutting corners, the expensive and the important stuff is behind the scenes, the electrical, the plumbing, any number of things that could be major expenses. And it doesn't help if it looks good in listing pictures and you show up and you can tell the cabinets are cheap, countertops are cheap. There's a big difference. Like when we're flipping, I always talk about the difference between homeowner grade. So a homeowner doing a kitchen right now might spend $50,000. A flipper is not spending $50,000 on a kitchen in an entry-level home. They're going to spend $15,000, $18,000. And, you know, 10 years ago, that was $10,000, but everything's more expensive now. So it's good, bad, indifferent. You know, I've seen homeowners do crazy things and cut corners as well. Homeowners doing their own work, but just everything that Jeb said. But I would definitely follow up with, if you're perceiving that they've cut corners, just run, because if you can see that with your eyes, you're not going to be able to do a destructive inspection where you're actually going through the property and tearing into the walls and looking at the plumbing. It's not going to be good.
Good stuff. So earlier you weren't here, clearly, but we had a question that I couldn't really answer. And so I told Rob to email me. So if Rob's still here, I'm going to put this question back up there, and we'll see if you have an answer for it, because this is beyond I don't follow the LIBOR. I don't follow any of that stuff anymore. But he says mortgage was signed with LIBOR index in 2017. 5/1 ARM loan expires next December. Also the LIBOR index fund. I got a letter in the mail stating there will be an adjustment to a new index. So thoughts on that?
So here's the funny thing. The reason why they retired LIBOR is they found out that, so LIBOR stands for London Interbank Offering Rate. So it's not even a U.S. index, but it was always often used for U.S. mortgages. The funny part is the banks in Europe were manipulating the index to make it higher so they could charge more and make more money. So the answer wasn't to, hey, stop them from cheating on the index. The answer was, let's get rid of that index and we'll get an entirely new one. So for the most part, what they're being switched over is SOFR, SOFR. I don't have two monitors, Jeb. Look up SOFR and see what it stands for. That's the new index. For the most part, The index itself is really low, so your margins are a little bit higher. So LIBOR, the index was higher. You had slightly smaller margins.
Secured
At the end,
overnight financing rate.
okay, so it's meant to be a very similar proxy to LIBOR. I would be surprised if your new index is not that SOFR. And they put a lot of time and energy into it to making sure that it is not disadvantageous to consumers who have LIBOR loans. And think about it from this perspective. They would be opening themselves up to a massive can of worms in forms of lawsuits if magically what your LIBOR loan would have adjusted to was 2.5, and magically you now have one that adjusts to 4%. That would be problematic for the banks. So I would say the same thing. Give Rob the same advice. If you have the letter, I'd love to take a look at it. I'd love to compare what your LIBOR loan would have adjusted to and compare what that SOFR index is going to look like. At some point, everyone likes to say at some point rates are going to go higher and you should get out of adjustables. For the last 5 years, you benefited from a slightly lower rate. Most of these, when they adjust, are actually adjusting lower because rates are lower now than where they were 5 years ago, as hard as that is to believe. But you want to look at it. We talk about all the time here that we're at a 40-year bull run in interest rates. So at any point in the last 40 years, if you'd taken an adjustable rate, a pure adjustable rate, not a 5-1, not a 7-1, not a 10-1, if you had taken a monthly adjustable, you would have been way, way ahead. Most people, that scares them. It scares me. I wouldn't want it, even though I know logically it makes all the sense in the world. So from that perspective, we can take a look at it and show you exactly what it's going to change to when they throw the new index in.
So with that said, Josh, I think you just answered the question, but at a 5-1 index, if my loan goes to an adjustable, once a year, do you think at this point it's going to, if rates do trend up over the next couple months, what have you, do you think it makes sense to get back into a 30-year or a fixed rate loan? Or do you think that short-term rate's going to continue to stay lower than where the fixed rate is?
The rate should remain low, but you have to be comfortable with the volatility. So in 2004, 2005, I refinanced into a 10-1 ARM. I said, there's no way we're going to be in this house for 10 years. I got about 0.25% lower rate than the 30-year. And sure enough, we found ourselves there 10 years later, and it adjusted and it dropped a lot. And for 2-3 years, it was way low. And then in 2018, it went up. And we're like, well, this sucks. And so we got out of it and went back into a 30-year. But sure enough, as soon as 2018 passed, 2019, 2020, 2021, those would have been really low years. So the moral of the story is you have to have a comfort level with it changing from year to year. And maybe, your payments are going to go up $200 one year, go down $300 another year. Over time, the adjustable rate should be lower, but you're going to have year-to-year volatility that most people are not comfortable with.
Got it. Yeah. So he says it's in a 6.8 interest rate from 2017. So it might be worth talking to somebody.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. So let me throw this in there. That changes the calculus here. Because if we say a 6.8 in 2017 never should have been that high, so it was most likely some type of non-QM loan, and those generally have really high margins. So you may not like the way that thing adjusts at all. So if we have other options to get you into a better loan, you'd want to take a look at it. So Jeb has his referral link. If you're here in California, he'll get you connected with us. If you're in any of the other 49 states, he's got experts that can take care of you.
There you go. So there's also emails at the top there. You can go that route as well. I did see a question here. So Jennifer came in and said, how often do you see ARMs, Josh? Are you still seeing people take ARMs, or mostly 30 years these days?
They're not obsolete. Where they come into play is portfolio lenders and non-QM lenders. So I draw a little bit of a distinction between them. We have portfolio banks and credit unions that actually loan their own money, and their preference is really to do some type of ARM, 5-1, 7-1, 10-1. And why would we use them versus a more traditional lender? They can make exceptions. So something falls just outside of the box. I have a client now that we're refinancing. He just hit 7 years on his short sales, but he had 2 short sales in Arizona on investment properties. Otherwise, perfect sterling credit. No one would touch him 3 years ago when we did that loan. And one of our portfolio lenders looked at it and said, hey, It's a 60% loan to value to a 750 credit score borrower that makes $300,000 a year. It makes all the sense in the world. That's the most common. Non-QM loans, where you're doing bank statement programs, debt service coverage ratio loans, where we're using the rents from a rental property in lieu of income for qualifying. Sometimes you'll see them on that. For the most part, people will call and ask, hey, I know I'm not going to be here in 7 years. Should I do a 5-1 ARM? We look at it and we're like, well, the 5-1 ARM's more expensive on your standard Fannie Freddie loan than it is for a 30-year. So when you say they're obsolete, you're pretty much correct, Jennifer. They're, for the most part, for those types of loans, they're higher. For jumbo loans, portfolio loans, non-QM stuff, they can make sense.
No, and I was going to tell you a minute ago, Brent, a mutual friend of ours, I remember back in the day, dude, when he had a 1-month LIBOR and the rate was like basically free. I mean, it was like more or less free money what he was borrowing because the rates were so low on that thing.
Yeah. No, we had like 3 or 4 years in ours where I was just tickled. I was waiting for my adjustment to come from, like, I know that thing's going down. How much lower is it going to be this year?
Let's see here. So we've had a lot of questions tonight, Josh. Let's see. So I'm going to throw a link up here on the screen. A lot of you guys are asking for this to get referred to somebody. So on the bottom there's a link. Click, just go to that link. It's also in the description below, jebsmith.net/referral. You'll get connected with an expert. It's on the mortgage side. And if you need a real estate agent, you can also collect that in there. These are people that I know, like and trust, people that, that I know will do a good job. I'm not putting my name on the line otherwise. So this isn't some company that contacted me just to get your referral. So these are people that will take care of you. So hopefully that helps. Let's see. Rob says, thank you. We got here, you got our emails. I think we're kind of caught up here. Josh, rates. I talked at the beginning, not really a lot of movement, at the moment. Through the rest of the year, probably much the same. We've got 10 days or so less through the end of the year with holidays in there.
We were able to listen in the car, and essentially what you said is dead on. Don't expect a whole lot of movement between here and the end of the year. What happens is trading desks, bond traders, stock traders, they clear out this time of year. They want to head to Aspen, they want to head to Vail, they want to hang out with their family. So sometimes you can get a wild curveball. So, you're talking about the Omicron virus or variant. Let's say another variant comes out,
I think I said Delta, but I meant Omicron.
You did, but I didn't want to point it out. A small error. We all knew what you were talking about.
Yep.
So, let's say we have one that comes out next weekend that looks like it's just absolute insanity over Christmas weekend and it's killing people left and right. That would make for a much bigger move next week because there's very few people at those trading desks. So, long way of saying, Black Swan event, weird, crazy news coming out over the rest of the year could make a big move one way or the other, better or worse, more so than it would at normal trading times. That being said, don't expect anything to happen. So the big question, the big news that we got, I think, since last call, last Wednesday, is the Fed, instead of tapering over 6 months, they're going to expedite it, do it over 3 months. You're like, okay. The 6 month was kind of already factored into the market and accounted for. When they announced 3 months, it didn't change anything. So it tells me the market had already said, hey, ho-hum, no big deal. And what we've seen over time, when they've tapered in the past, other than the taper tantrum in 2014, it's actually led to improvement in interest rates. So what they're doing is they're setting themselves up to be able to do something at the end of that tapering in March. So April, May, June, they're talking that they would like to raise 3 times next year. I hope they get to. The Fed has no good options right now. No good options. So they need to tighten, like you said, get some bullets back in their gun in case they need them further down the line. I don't think they're going to. What we're seeing here, so inflation, the current inflation that we're seeing is caused by 2 things. Demand, largely driven by the stimulus that both Trump's administration and Biden's was pumping into the economy here. We also have an infrastructure bill that will do a little bit of that. But for the most part, that money is in the economy and gone. We're going to see fairly weak retail sales here through the Christmas season. So I don't think that demand side is going to be super high going forward. We're already seeing the excess savings. Excess is how the government defines it. I don't think any of us look into our bank account and say, hey, I've got excess savings. I got to get that out of there. But excess savings that spiked during the pandemic is already dwindling and normalizing. So I don't think we're going to see that high level of demand. What's the giant wild card is supply. So we're all thinking that sometime in 2022, supply chain should normalize, whatever that means now. But now you're seeing this variant, you're seeing factories shut down, different economies shut down at different levels. So as long as these stupid variants keep kicking out and pushing that further down the line, we may have supply limitations and the inflation could stick around longer. So even though the underlying fundamentals of the economy are not that great, as long as we've got constraints on supply, it makes it really hard for the Fed. Otherwise, they might want to just stay aside and say, hey, let's just be neutral or get to neutral and let things sort of normalize. Who knows what that is? So long way of saying, I don't have any huge expectation for rates being higher next year. We'll do a little bit more research. When you and I come back first week of January, we'll have a projection. You and I said last year, 3.25, 3 3/8 is probably the high for the year. And that's about where we hit in the spring. Most of the year has been well below that. I don't know that I think all that different this year. It's great that Fannie Mae and the National Association of Realtors and the Mortgage Bankers Association come out with their numbers, but they're always overly pessimistic. And it's sort of why? Why would they be? It's not that they want to misinform you, but if you tell everyone rates are going to be low and they spike, then people are really pissed. If you tell everyone rates are higher and they end up lower and there's more sales, more home price increases, everyone's happier from that. But every year they come out with these numbers. Hey, they're going to normalize. It's going to go back to 5%. And you're like, no, they've been consistently wrong for 25 years. There's no reason to think that they're right now.
No, absolutely. Agree. So we got a lot of thank yous, a lot of people reaching out. Thank you guys. So I was going to ask you something, Josh, and I completely forgot what the hell it was. So yeah.
How sore my butt is from 9 hours in the driver's seat today.
No, we weren't going to talk about your butt.
Oh, okay.
We've already talked about swinger villages in Florida.
Cool.
While you were gone. So, no, what I was going to talk about, you were talking about the supply demand, supply constraints, that sort of thing. I was actually golfing with some guy the other day, and he was talking, and he said, here in Huntington Beach, where we're located, for those of you who don't know, we stare that the ocean is there. And you essentially look at the boats that are docked off the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles. You see the big tanker ships that are, or not tanker, the big ships out there with all the supplies on them that are just waiting to dock. And he said that recently they've been told that they have to now dock 150 miles offshore, and it's primarily because of a perception, like people see them there, and it's creating more of a problem. And if they go further offshore when no one can see them, they're essentially on the other side of Catalina now. It kind of, I guess, alleviates the idea that we all think that they're just, that your stuff is there when it's really just still there, but you don't know about it. So yeah, I found that interesting. I don't know if that's 100% accurate, but
it's accurate. They came up with a very elaborate system for giving them coordinates to where they're allowed to dock. Like you are out there, don't sit off the ocean.
And they've also told them basically to slow down. Like instead of rushing to port, like take your time getting here. If it's going to take you 2 weeks, take an extra week, because we can't do anything with you anyway. So I just found that interesting in an environment where it is an issue. I mean, we all know it's an issue, but they're trying to change the perception on it by just getting them visually out of the way. So anyway, all right. Let's see here. What do we got? We're pushing close to 2 hours here. We'll do a couple more questions and let Josh get back to. He's in a hotel room.
Short 2 hours. It went by real quick for me.
Did it? Yeah, I felt, bro. I thought I was going to lose my voice. I thought I was going to lose my voice about 20 minutes into this thing.
Well, I want to know how with 45 giant pulls off that bang, there's still anything left in the can. You have like 9 of them under the desk?
No, just one, man. I gotta keep going. That's the only reason I'm still here. M. Hewitt says, we're purchasing a home from MI Homes in Grand Cell 3. I don't know. Price is $653 for structural and lot and base price. Do you see Michigan Homes as a good, MI Homes as a good builder? Also, what amount should we go in? Okay, so unfortunately, not familiar with the company itself. I don't know if Josh, if you have anything on them personally. Yeah, so don't really have information there. Not sure what you could go in for designs. I mean, you're going to always pay more money in the design center for upgrades than you would doing them outside yourself, hiring your own flooring contractor, your own painter, your own kitchen remodel, whatever. But the nice thing about doing them through the design centers, you can factor them into the cost of the loan. You can finance them versus having to come up with the cash, but you're going to pay a premium to do that. So just keep that in mind. Outside of that, don't really have a lot of information there.
Yeah, don't go nuts just because you are paying a premium, and they'll show you some cool stuff, and you can end up. And I guess one of the things you may want to ask the sales office, what's the average? What's the typical amount that people are spending on upgrades? Because if people are spending $35,000 on upgrades and you spend $80,000, you're going to be unique to the neighborhood, and you're unlikely to get that return on it. By the same token, if people are averaging $40,000 or $50,000 upgrades, and you don't do any. When it comes time to sell yours, a buyer's going to come through and go, hey, this one sucks compared to the beautiful homes in this neighborhood.
Good point. Good point. Good stuff to keep in mind there. Let's see, Josh, what's the name of the channel? Your channel, YouTube?
Buy wise, borrow smart.
So Josh is he's trying to put some videos out there. So go show him some love. Click on that.
No, so here we've made a giant commitment for next year. So there will be there will be 100 next year, my friend. Here, Jeb, I'll tell you this: if there are not 100 videos on my channel created between now and next Christmas, I will give you $1,000. I will hand it to you on air on our Christmas show next year. Everyone here's a witness.
Gonna be good. That's gonna be so good, guys. I can't wait to have that $1,000. I'm confident I'm going to get it.
By the way, you still owe my wife and I dinner from our last bet on the house that you thought sold that then fell out, that I was right on the sale price. I forgot about that the other day.
But then we made another bet on another house that you lost. I don't remember.
I don't remember losing. I don't remember losing. You're making up stories here.
If you haven't seen that house, Josh, you should see that house.
I don't want to, because I wanted that house really bad. I just didn't have the money to buy it and to tear it down and rebuild it the way they did.
Needed about $1.5 million to rebuild it based on what they just put there.
Oh.
So it's large. Let's see here. So we're pushing an hour, 56 minutes, guys. It's Christmas, almost Christmas. I appreciate you guys being here. 120 people have liked the video. If you haven't done so already, I ask that you do that. If you found any value at all, Josh, anything you want to say? We're going to be here next week. It's the week before New Year's. I don't know. Maybe
we'll is it the 29th? If it's the 29th, we're okay. The 28th is my wife's birthday. I'm good on the 29th, but I don't think my wife's going to say, hey, go jump on YouTube. It's the date of my birth.
A special gift. She could be a special guest.
a special guest on her birthday. Too. Let's do it.
We'll give her a gift.
Yeah.
It is the 29th. So
I'm good. If the people want to talk real estate between Christmas and New Year's, we can do it.
All right. So we'll plan on being here, guys. We do appreciate the support, the love, all of that good stuff. I'm going to throw a couple emails up here so you guys have our contact information if you want to reach out. If you want to send us an email, do that. If you need a referral to a lender, a real estate agent anywhere in the country, that link there will get you there. It's also in the description. Again, I appreciate you guys. I'm here because you guys have shown me the love and support, and I appreciate it. And I'll continue to do it as long as you guys are here. So thank you. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Whatever else you celebrate. Merry
Kwanzaa. Well. You left out Kwanzaa. I don't know that there's any other that fall in this time of year. Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Christmas. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. All right, Josh. Appreciate you being here, bud. Dropping in. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time. Adios.